conventional rock and roll was really kind of interesting.
When I played the tune Time during the Diamond Dogs tour, it was a very theatrical tour, and the band was actually in the pit. It was very much like taking a musical Broadway on the road, a show on the road. And it had a 1920s and 30s setting feel, and I played like a swing-style piano, stride music it was called, in fact, with avant-garde touching. So you'll hear it was something like this.
Time is waiting in the wings. He speaks of senseless things. His script is you and me.
The new ingredient that helped sell Bowie when he returned to America was his revolutionary use of a full stage set. Bands had used light shows before, but this was the first time that a rock star had gone to a team of Broadway designers.
There were 4 towers that were the basis of the design, and they were made of newsprint that could be torn apart. So Bowie actually climbed one of these towers and destroyed the building during the concert. There was also a bridge across here, and during the concert, the bridge lowered down to the stage so that he could step off of it and sing downstage. And then at the end, it raised up again. And a cherry picker arm. Ground control to Major Tom. There was a door that opened up, and this cherry picker arm came forward and extended out over the first 6 rows of the audience. Check ignition and may God's love be with you.
The first time a cherry picker, I think, subsequently used by many others, was used in rock and roll. It was standing upright like that with an office chair on the top, and it was set in the window of a skyscraper, and I was sitting on the office chair on a telephone like some kind of male secretary. And the cherry picker started coming out, and it went out about 40 foot over the audience's heads. And because of the beautiful lighting that we had, you didn't see the rest of the cherry picker. You only saw the office chair suspended out there. At the end of the song finished, I put the telephone back in its cradle. The bloody thing didn't go back. So I was just stuck out there. So what the hell am I going to do out here? And the next song started, and so I think I did 3 or 4 songs. On this chair, I thought, what am I going to do when the show finishes? I can't go anywhere. I'm going to have to jump. They better catch me. I thought, no, Iggy's already done that.
The press loved it, and the tour sold out in increasingly larger venues.
I've seen all the rest of my Hollywood highs, best of the last, real star they ever had. Step on my legend, films that I've made. Forget that I'm filthy, 'cause you just got made.
I guess I'm living my fantasy.
What's your fantasy?
Oh, Bowie. He represents it all to me. Excitement, space. See, I'm just the space cadet. He's the commander.
You're so bad. Best I ever had. Oh, please stay.
I think eventually David Bowie had to change the androgyny, draggy, bisexual creature, as all those little American boys used to say, you know, fag music. He had to change because America just was not ready to completely let that come into the mainstream. Even Alice Cooper had to stop doing drag. Alice Cooper had to stop wearing ladies' slingback shoes. He had to stop wearing the false eyelashes and the women's old dresses and go more into the horror. People in America could understand horror and blood and dead babies, but they couldn't understand male-female sexuality, you know, bisexuality. They weren't ready to understand.
Alice had indeed gotten into horror. He, too, had come to develop a bigger stage show.
Look into my nightmare. I think you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna feel alive.
It got to a point where we were drawing enough people where we could see, well, we could do a football stadium. We could go ahead and do a football. But in order to fill that kind of a stadium, we had to do a bigger show. And we had the means to do it. We actually had the money to do it, so we did.
There were good commercial reasons for bringing theater into rock music. The economics of touring created a need to sell tens of thousands of tickets to fill huge stadiums, and music alone wasn't always enough. One band from New York took it all to the logical extreme. With their pyrotechnic stage show, Kiss would sell more records than Bowie, Alice Cooper, and Lou Reed combined.
When we were growing up, I imagine there were many people who were drawing pictures of the race car that they wanted to own someday. I think we probably were different in that during school, we were probably drawing pictures of what the ultimate stage would look like for a rock and roll show. The difference was we reached a point where we would take that drawing to somebody and say, build this.
This is the model of the Kiss Destroyer Tour in 1976. And one of the main elements here was to bring them up and over the amps and down these stage steps left and right, and so that they had energy that could attack the stage.
As far as the makeup went, let's face it, when you play someplace like this, you better make sure you can be seen by the last row. You want to know that somebody down there doesn't look on the stage and go, is that an ant? Or is that Paul? Is that Gene?
It was a sentiment that was to be shared by many in the business. If you wanted to be big, your set had to be big as well. Without a fleet of trucks big enough to transport a circus, no rock band was really in business. The whole industry was beginning to change. When the artist Guy Paylart painted his fantasy portraits in 1973, he showed rock stars living in an increasingly showbiz world of cabaret and limousines.
There's an underlying unease here, definitely. You can feel it in every...
Meanwhile, Bowie himself was in trouble.
avenue.
Despite the success of Diamond Dogs, DeFree's heavy spending had finally bankrupted his company, and Bowie had developed an increasingly heavy cocaine habit while living in Los Angeles.
Is there anything behind us?
Bowie went back to basics. No set, no frills, and a series of albums that saw him moving to a more sparse electronic sound.
Return of the thin white tube, glowing darts in lovers' eyes. Here are we.
He also made a surprising move away from America.
Well, okay, personal reasons for going to Berlin were really to get me out of Los Angeles, which at the time I knew nobody but bad people, and I was doing nothing but bad stuff.
In fact, Berlin was in many ways the perfect place for Bowie. It had been a kind of spiritual home for this whole movement of rock and roll. Lou Reed recorded an album called Berlin without having been there.
In Berlin, by the wall.
The Doors covered Kurt Weill songs, and now Bowie was to be joined there by another survivor of the era.
Meine Damen und Herren, Mesdames et Messieurs, Ladies und Gentlemen.
Iggy Pop had also been managed by Tony DeFries, and their partnership had ended in tears. He, too, needed a change.
I'd always been fascinated with the Germans. A lot of guys in rock and roll liked the uniform, you know.